Welcome everybody to the August 5th, 2025, 6 p.m. Board of Trustees regular meeting. Can I get everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Supervisor File.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Hayward.
Here.
Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Nalamothu. Here. And Trustee Tedder.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Next, on the approval agenda, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion carried. Board public announcements. Board members and or individuals in the audience may make a statement containing information about a recent or upcoming event. This is not about items on the agenda. Does anybody on the board have one?
I do, just real quick.
Okay.
Preservation Clarkston is having their annual gala, and it is, I believe, when is it, Sam? It's the September 20th is it, and you can get your tickets to it or contribute to it. It's for to help support the currently to support the scholarship fund for the Clarkston Construction Tech Trades Program, and it's going to be at the Brady Lodge. It's a dinner with a live auction. You can go to preservation.com and go to our website and get hit the link there to get tickets and find out more information about it.
Okay, I went last year. Is Rivenberg is going to go?
I hope so.
Last year I bet on, or won the auction to get a sit in the suite with Rivenbergs at the Lions game, so it was nice. Anybody else on the board? No? Anybody in the audience? No? So is that a yes or a?
Yes.
Okay, and we're on the public announcements section.
Oh, announcements?
Yes,
I thought it was.
that's okay.
Sorry.
Yep. Anybody else online? Nope. Okay, then I'm going to close the board and public announcements. Public comments. After being recognized by the chair, individuals in the audience may address the township board. Speakers must go to the podium and identify herself or himself, limiting their comments to no more than 5 minutes remaining. And this is about items that are not on the agenda. You'll have an opportunity to address those a little later on. And as a courtesy, I'll let you know when you're at your 4-minute mark. So if you have something important you want to wrap up, you can do that. Does anybody want to make public comments?
Mark Newsom, 9410 Bartonville Road. I'm up here again. This has been ongoing for 3.5 years now. Documented through the township websites. Across the street from my house is Bridgewood Church. Wednesday evenings, they have outdoor kid services in the summer. They play music. They have a sound system, amps, mixer boards, speakers on stands. And I hear music from 5 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock at night on Wednesday nights. It's against the ordinances for a church to play outside amplified sound. It has now become to the point where I have to retaliate because the township is not doing anything. They drag their feet all summer long, and then we start over again the next summer. I have nothing against the church. I have nothing against the kids. I hope I can hear the kids screaming and playing from inside my house. I only wish it. I have grandkids. But I shouldn't have to listen to bebop bass over my Tiger baseball game while I'm eating dinner. And, I mean, I got to put up with the traffic already. I mean, the traffic's the traffic. It's background, but the kid thing, it's terrible. I have a decibel meter. I know my limits. I played the crime called a prayer for 4 hours on Sunday at 80 decibels. I had hundreds of people pissed at me. It shouldn't get like this. I like my neighbors, and all my neighbors agree with me. We shouldn't have to listen to this. Please do something. I've contacted the supervisor's office 4 times. I've never heard back, ever. It's pathetic. Don't make me continue this. I mean, tonight's AA meeting. I could be home playing 99 bottles of beer on the wall at 80 decibels. I don't want to do it, but I will. I don't have a problem doing it. Call the police. I don't care. I know my legal limits. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience? Welcome. Please come up.
I'm going to quickly read. It's not very long.
Okay.
My name's Thomas Price. I live at 8003 Crescent Drive. And I'm speaking as a person who enjoys what is left of the rural beauty of this area. The green landscape and the beautiful views are what attracted me here from Lake Orion. As a former planning official from Lake Orion, I'm acutely aware of the long-term effects of our decisions and the importance of really supporting the intrinsic value of a really special area. And to retain its beauty and charm. A tree ordinance.
Okay, excuse me.
Yes?
I apologize. You came in a little late, so you probably didn't hear me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Public
apologize.
announcements right now are about items that are not on the agenda. There will be a
Oh,
public
okay.
announcement
Tree
period when
ordinance
we
is
get.
on the agenda?
Exactly.
Okay. Oh,
Okay. I wanted to go, but I thought that's where you're going, but I wanted to hear the
okay.
word
I wasn't
tree
doing
ordinance.
very well anyway, so.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, anybody online? Okay, I'll bring it back up to the board. Anybody on the board? Nope, okay, then we'll close public comments. Public hearings, we don't have any. Presentation reports, we don't have any. Carryover items, actually, that's on the regular business. Consent agenda. On here, we have request to approve the Board of Trustees' regular meeting minutes of June 24, 2025, special meeting minutes of July 8, 2025, and regular closed session meeting minutes of July 2nd, 2025. Second item is request to approve the July 29th, 2025 check run, including ACH for $368,459.71. Ratify the July 18th, 2025 payroll for $411,966.10, and the June 2025 EFT ACH wire activity of $556,682.85. And finally, to request to approve the 2025 budget amendment number 21 from the Clarkson Community Gardens for, it was actually a donation that was made. Items removed from the consent agenda, there isn't any. Regular business. Okay, regular business.
Excuse me, we didn't get a motion to approve. the
I'm sorry.
consent.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I would like to have number 1 removed for discussion.
We've done that before we went to the agenda, and it's approved.
No, because he's approving it under consent.
Do I have a second?
I'll make a
Support.
motion to amend the consent agenda by removing item number 1 and moving it to item K, items removed from the consent agenda.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, well. All right, so before we go to regular business, let's go to request to the approval of the Board of Trustees' regular meeting minutes, special meeting minutes of July 8th, And the closed session meetings of July 22nd. I don't have-
Okay, my question was regarding on page 3, it was item number 1, under regular business.
I know, you gotta take a minute
It's okay.
here. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure, it was on page 3 of 7, and it's under regular business, it would be number 1,
Page
July 22nd.
July 22nd, yeah.
Oh, page 3 is
Page-
24.
It would be 3 of 7 of the notes. I don't know what page it is on.
Oh, I got the header up in the header, top left, it says 307. What does yours say
Yeah.
when you're looking at
That's,
it?
3 of 7.
that's from the 24th.
Right.
That's June 24th.
So what
June
minute?
22nd is what you have here, correct?
July
Or
22nd.
July 22nd, I'm sorry.
What am I looking at here? Because why does it say mine?
It's the very last
Well,
set.
what
Oh,
page, what
last
page
one.
is it in the agenda? Is it page 13? Or
July
13, 14?
22nd. Might be
It's,
page
it's,
13 or
it's page
14.
15 of the agenda.
Okay, let me see it. There
Yes.
July 22nd, okay. And, I'm sorry, now that I'm on the right page, can you please tell me?
Sure. So I was looking at the motions. First of all, the first motion was actually not the first motion that was called. So I'm just trying to, first of all, a little confused about how that would work, because that was the call to question. And that was actually done after the motion was made. And the call to question was made after the first motion was made regarding the item we were talking about. Sam requested that there be discussion. Paul, and it was actually Paul who called the question. And Terry's the one who seconded that. And then my question is too about this the call to question, which was not followed by proper procedure to begin with. And I did some research on it. First of all, recognition, a member must be recognized by the chair to have the floor to make the motion, which was not. Shouting question or I call the question without recognition is incorrect and ineffective. The member says I moved to the previous question or I call the question, which we know that happened, but, and then we did get a second. It's not debatable, but it requires a 2/3 vote. We did not have a 2/3 vote. That would require 5 votes, because 2/3 vote is 4.66. So technically it failed, although we passed it. I know it's probably a moot point, but and the motion should also not be used to suppress debate prematurely, which it was, so.
I'm sorry, what was that last comment?
It says the motion should not be used to suppress debate prematurely. As soon as somebody asked, well, as Sam had asked if we can discuss the motion, and instantly it was called question. So, which is a part of another issue that we have, and I know this is new to me because I'm trying to do as much as I can with Robert's rules, but this is Robert's rules information and how we're supposed to follow this procedure. And it wasn't followed properly, and I know I had spoken to Carrie before regarding this, but I think it's just one of the many problems that we have with kind of, maybe we haven't have an opportunity to go over these, some of our regulations and our procedures that were not being followed properly. So I don't know if these notes have to be updated for that, because they're out of order. And technically, the call to question was not, the procedure wasn't followed properly either on that, so.
This is
And
the,
again, I don't know if that's a moot point.
yeah, this was the item that the attorney addressed, right? If I remember correctly?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so trustee Hayward, you are correct. The vote should have been by a supermajority or 2/3 vote. That's my mistake. If you recall, I came to the podium and said it should be a vote, and it should be by a majority vote, so that's my mistake. With regard to the other procedural matters, I think it was adequate. There was a motion before we made the the question motion, so if you wanted to correct the minutes to reflect that that was the order of the motions, I don't have a problem with that, although the minutes seem to be adequate. In terms of the underlying motion, the failure of the board, on my advice, the failure of the board to meet the requirements of a call the question motion does not invalidate the subsequent
Sure.
motion.
I knew it was a moot point at this point, but I'm,
Yeah, and so that's my apology, because I'm the one that did that, that's for sure.
that's it.
I have a question for Dan.
Yeah,
So, my understanding is that you can't call a question until there's been dialogue. That's the whole point of it. It says clearly that it's to stop an unlimited amount of dialogue, but that everyone should have a chance to talk. It's not a suppression tool. It's to end an ongoing dialogue that's already happened, which is not how that was used. It was used to have no dialogue. So, this is something that needs to get addressed. There's a whole slew of these procedural things that seem to be going, they're all questionable lately, that are happening.
right.
And I don't know who's supposed to be the parliamentarian, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to say it again. But that's where a lot of this discontent or bickering goes on, is that nobody on this board seems to understand what the rules are, and I certainly don't, and they keep changing daily. But there's at no point that I read anywhere where you're allowed to just not have dialogue. You know, that was an agenda item that I put on the agenda. It was my MAFE. I sat here and took a bunch of crap from a bunch of people who attacked me about the whole reason behind it. And then I didn't get an opportunity to even explain what the reason for the MAFE was, why we even had the MAFE, or what the intent of the MAFE was. It was just a matter of, an inadequate amount of board members jumped out to suppress the dialogue on it, and that's clearly, so, I need you to clarify how this is all happening and how they're getting away with it.
Well, I'm not going to phrase it that way.
Okay, I did.
Robert's rules, we adopted as a guideline. There's no doubt. I made a mistake. It should have been by 2/3 vote. It was only by a majority vote. That goes without saying. In terms of what my impression of Robert's rules too often is, they give advice. I think Trustee Hayward just read something that was like advice of what the goal is. I think what you're referring to as Robert's rules suggests that there should be allowed some debate on the motion, even though the motion is to call the question. In terms of stopping discussion with regard to the underlying motion, that is the point of call the question. You call the question for the purposes of going to an immediate vote. Now, board members can have a little bit of discussion, as I recall from Robert's rules, about calling the question and why that's right or that's not right. Up to the chair to determine how long that goes, but there's no hard and fast rules. So call the question is for that very purpose, which is by a 2/3 majority vote, the board wants to vote on the underlying motion.
Right, but.
So I disagree. I mean, I wouldn't phrase it as suppressing comment, but that is the purpose of call the question.
But calling the question, the way I understand it, is to, when there's a discussion. I'm not talking about the discussion about calling the question. I'm talking about the discussion of the agenda item.
Yeah.
There should always be discussion on the agenda item. There was none. To just say we're going to vote to not allow any discussion on an agenda item does not seem like that's the intent of Robert Rules or anything I've ever seen before, where there can be no dialogue
Yeah.
on an agenda item. So those are two separate things. The first one was to just absolutely deny any dialogue at all on the agenda item. Now, then it was done inappropriately after that, but the point of it is, are you telling me that you support or that you confirm that at any time the board can just vote to, because when I read it, and Dave read it obviously, it clearly states that the call to question is to stop an ongoing discussion and move it to a vote, not suppress the whole entire discussion.
Okay, and the only thing that and listen, maybe what I should do at this point is say I need to research it. Maybe I should have done that 2 weeks ago. But my point is this: at what point is a discussion beyond when you can call the question?
After everyone's had a chance to talk.
No, I don't agree with that, though. I can take a look at it, Trustee Morocco. The point of call the question is the board determines that they want to vote on the underlying question without discussion. That's the whole point of call the question. Now, where it precisely happens in the realm of a discussion, I would agree with you that typically it's after a lengthy discussion and someone says, hey, we're ready to vote. That didn't happen in this case, but I don't think it invalidates the calling of the question.
Okay, so would you recommend that I just bring it back on the agenda again, and then
No.
we can have discussion? Well, why not? I was
Because the
denied-
board's, I've already said that the underlying issue is not invalidated by the procedural error of call the question. That's number one. Number two, in this particular case, as you recall, it was a due process hearing, which has a whole other realm to it, in my opinion, which is I would not recommend that we redo the due process hearing. Because, one, the motion is not invalidated by the procedural error of call the question. Board members, under your scenario, may have been denied the opportunity to discuss, but that doesn't invalidate the underlying motion, which was properly passed by the board. That's my interpretation of what happened.
You think that the call to question was properly passed by the board? It didn't meet the criteria.
No, I've already admitted, the only criteria that I found that it violated was it was not by a supermajority, which was my advice. Actually, it wasn't my advice, it was my lack of informing the board that you needed a supermajority.
Because had we known that, we would have had dialogue.
The call of the question would have failed if the vote stayed 4-3.
So Dan, the purpose of me bringing this up was
Yeah.
not to go backwards.
Sure.
The purpose of me bringing this up is to go forward, so this doesn't happen again.
Right.
That we do all these things properly.
Right.
I don't want to revisit things that's already happened. But I do want to move forward and make sure that we do this properly. And the research that I did and basically says, proper use, the motion should not be used to suppress debate prematurely. If moved too early, it may be seen as a stifling discussion, but as seen as stifling discussion. And that's how it was used in this case. But, and again, I don't want to argue, but we do definitely, we need to do something to move forward so this stuff doesn't happen again.
Right.
And I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Robert's Rules. It's not a one-page book, right? Gee,
Right.
there's a lot of things, and I don't blame you for not knowing. I mean, the longest I've never, I don't even think I've heard this done.
Yeah.
The length of time I've been paying attention to what's going on here and all the meetings I've seen. So, you know, it's new to me.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen a lot, of course, not everybody knows the details of that, but this is something I think going forward we need to figure out.
And I don't have any problem with that, but what I would point out to address Sam's questions, now that you've read the language, it says it may be perceived as stifling comment. That's not a hard and fast rule in Robert's Rules, and there's a judgment, a subjective component to it. That's an interpretation,
Yeah, it says
by the
if
board.
moved too early, correct. But
If
it just
moved
says
too early, right.
basically the motion should not be used to suppress debate prematurely.
Right.
And there was no debate at all. That's the problem. There was none.
Right.
And I'm just, personally, I think that everybody should have an opportunity to say something. But I agree. If we've been talking and talking and talking and we're not going anywhere, then yes, somebody should call a question, for sure.
Right.
So, that was
Let
all.
me ask you, did I
Yeah.
call you today on this issue?
Yes.
And what was my comments?
Very similar. Is that, yeah.
Because I found out yesterday.
Right.
It was a supermajority.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what it was required.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay.
If I
Jim.
may, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I just, irrespective of the specific item on the table, I really do think we need clarification, because I've heard from board members that we don't follow Robert's Rules. I think we should. I think we should have a parliamentarian, whether it's our clerk, we send her to school on Robert's Rules, or any one of us, frankly, but yourself. But I do think it's critical that we have a parliamentarian and that we follow Robert's Rules. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have frustrating disagreements about who's asserting authority, when and how, and that's created division on some issues. And I think it's critical that we play by the same songbook, playbook, whatever you want to call it. And on top of it, my understanding, and having read the township ordinance, is that we do adhere to Robert's rules, at least the spirit of them, right? And so I think that's an important takeaway from all of this, is that I hope there's a general understanding or unanimous understanding that we do follow Robert's rules, and to the best of our abilities, and that's the guidebook we use to make decisions for this township.
I agree with that.
All right, so what do we need to do here?
We have minutes that have not been approved. We're still on the agenda item.
I think, because
Item
my
A.
recollection is that the call to question was by Treasurer Brown. So maybe that needs to be corrected, but we can always put this off for 2 weeks and come back and correct the minutes. I don't know, it's up to the clerk.
I have a quick question. Dan, if it says that the motion carried, but it didn't meet the criteria, did it truly carry?
Yeah, probably not. But the
Okay.
minutes would reflect that the board
That's fine.
considered it carried.
Okay, well,
So I
then
think the minutes should say
I think
that
the
the
minutes
motion
should
carried.
reflect that it didn't actually carry by the rules, but you could say the board, did assume that it did, or took it as it did, or whatever, but I don't, but.
Well, let's do this. Subject to the board, let's take a little bit of a look at this on where we're at with Robert's rules, because Robert's rules has, and my focus is on the validity of motions made by the board and whether or not they're defensible in a court of law. And I'm not going to say across the board, but motions by a majority of the board, subject to statutory requirements of a supermajority that do exist, motions of this nature, procedural motions, are not going to be overturned because we didn't follow Robert's rules. So if we believe the motion carried that night, my opinion is that a board or a court that was addressing this would uphold that decision. That's number one. But if you really want me to look into how we're going to follow Robert's rules, and if we're going to be very precise with regard to Robert's rules, then we should commit to that, whether it have the clerk take classes. I can help. I do not claim to be a parliamentarian, but I have a general idea of what they are. In this case, I missed the fact that we should have had a supermajority. It's a procedural motion that is not going to affect the underlying validity of what the board did that night. So your technical question on whether it carried, I would say it did carry, because our adherence to Robert's rules is for guidance purposes.
Okay, I just want to be clear, though, that you can't say that when there's no discussion, that the motion would have carried, because the whole point of discussion is to try to bring up points to educate people on the point.
Right.
That's why we have discussion. Otherwise, we would just come in here and everyone would have predetermined their outcome before the meeting, and what are we even talking here about? Let's just go vote on everything right down the line, which is basically what we did. We had no discussion, and I'm not convinced that had we had discussion that and would have been allowed, that maybe the outcome could have been changed. Maybe not on this item, but any other item that comes down this the line that would be affected by this. That the suppression of discussion has a bearing on the outcome. I don't think anyone could dispute that. That it was a foregone conclusion that the outcome would have been the same had no one on the board had everyone got to voice their opinion. And it's also important that the residents understand where everybody's coming from.
Well, I think that was advertised in their vote. The residents do know where we came from because we ultimately voted on on the actual motion, not so much on the
Right, but that
call to
was after
question, but the
suppression
outcome.
of discussion,
Yeah,
so.
I would agree. I would agree.
It's not.
There
the
was a
right-
procedural
It's not the
mistake
right
made
way
there.
to do it.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to put some serious time into figuring out what the rules are, so everybody up here knows them.
Yep.
Because it seems to be they're all gray all of a sudden.
Well, on what's your feeling, Clerk Newbeck, with regard to the minutes? Would you like to have a couple of, because to the trustee's point, I think, am I correct that it was Paul that made the motion? That's my recollection. So,
I haven't re-listened to it recently. It's been a couple weeks. So
Right.
my notes said that it was Terry, but
yeah.
I can re-listen and
Why don't we
and
re-listen
change
and bring
I
that.
think it was Paul.
It was Paul.
Terry
I
seconded
listened to
it.
him
Okay.
Go to the
before
tape.
we came here. Yeah, go to the tape.
So,
But I think the minutes are reflecting what the video is, which is also out there, and the motion carried and we proceeded. So
Yeah, with that one
The minutes
correction.
reflect the action of the board, whether in that case it was right or wrong. I feel that it should stay,
Okay,
because that's how we proceeded, and if you were to sit and watch the video, you read the minutes and it says it didn't pass, but you watch the video
No,
and the video says it passes, there's a conflict there.
yeah, I agree with that completely. The only question that I would say is there was the original motion prior to the call to question. And
I-
procedurally, that should occur first.
I think what happened is it started, Sam started to speak, and then the call to question came. He may have started to say a motion, I don't remember.
No, there was a motion made first to deny looking into the case by Terry.
But
Then I said, okay, and that was supported.
I s-
And then I said I'd like to comment, and then it was a call to question. So that's how I got to me wanting to comment, was I waited until the motion was made and then seconded, and then came out with comment like you would normally do, following Robert's rules, which is how we've been doing it. Then the motion
But
to
is that
call
a
the question
subsidiary?
came. So, there was Dave's right.
That's my recollection.
There was
as
a
well, but I-
motion before.
Without watching it, kind of up to the board. That's my recollection, that there was a motion to deny.
I think we need to be careful what we're saying, because this was also discussed in closed session.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I'm just trying to get to
how
the
about I
bottom of the order.
reevaluate?
Yeah,
I'll watch it again, reevaluate, and bring this set back. Can we approve the other two and
Yeah.
move forward?
I don't think there's any questions on that one.
Just make the
There's
motion
two other
be for the
minutes.
other two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe the only thing we're really discussing relative to the minutes is what was discussed publicly, not what was discussed in closed session. So I think it's, getting the order right
Yeah.
and perhaps that it passed, it was the board's perception that the
That's how
question,
we
call to
proceed.
question passed, however, so that's where I'm at.
Okay.
All right. So I'll make a motion to approve the other 2 minutes and allow Clerk Newbeck to go back and review the minutes that are in question.
So will you state the 2 minutes that are being approved?
Well, I was afraid you're going to ask me to do that.
June 24th,
June
July
24th,
8th.
and the one in question is July
22nd.
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 And you want to
And
also
July
motion
8th are
to
approved.
approve July 8th as
Yeah.
well.
Yep. So June 24th, July 28th approved.
July-
In question are July 22nd.
July 8th.
Did I say it wrong again?
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm sitting there reading it. June 24th, July 8th approved,
correct.
and July 22nd in question to be reviewed by Clerk Newbeck and brought back.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carried. All right. Let's go to L1, which is a request to appoint board and committee member to the Parks and Recs Senior Advisory Committee. This was going to be presented by Director Christensen from the Parks and Recs. She had a vacation scheduled, and we kind of threw this meeting in after her vacation schedule. The individual information was provided. And I'm going to probably pronounce his name wrong. Forsecki?
Freshkey.
Freshkey?
Norm Freshkey. The application was enclosed. Does anybody have any comments about this in the audience? No? Anybody online? No? Okay. Bring it to the board. Anybody on the board have any questions? Comments? No? Okay, can I get a motion then, please?
Move to appoint Norm Freshkey to the Parks, Recreation, and Seniors Advisory Committee with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, L2. Request to approve the purchase of the fire department fire prevention vehicle and budget amendment number 22. In here is Chief Bechet to walk us through that one.
Good evening, everybody.
evening.
Fire department's here, obviously, to get approval to purchase one Ford F-250 or 150 truck, which will replace one of the fire prevention vehicles. That's a 2016. That 2016 vehicle will be recycled down as a utility pickup truck for the fire department. And then we have a 2008, then will be sold off. So we're looking for the approval of this one truck, and it's in the CIP for $50,000, and we would have to get an additional $9,500 for lights and sirens and a Knox box installation. So we're looking to get the approval for both the purchase of the truck and the budget amendment number 22 as presented.
Trustee Clerk? I'm sorry, Clerk. Trustee Clerk, that's interesting. Clerk
Yes, it
Newbeck.
is. Should we add also the asset disposal of the 2008, so that we take care of it?
It's already
now?
been completed.
Oh, we already
Yeah.
approved that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was done
Okay.
previously.
Perfect.
The only thing I might add is that, should we also add for the payment, dispersal of the funds for the truck? I don't see that on here.
So this truck, once I do get approval, then we put the order in for the truck, and then payment will be somewhere down the line on that.
Yeah, but there's no reason why we can't approve it now, so you don't have to come back to the board, right? Okay. So-
Any reason to think that the amount won't change? If it's gonna
That's
be
not
delayed?
supposed to. We're working off the invoice they provided us,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend this to add the disbursement of the payment as well.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that'll be added. So now, I'd like to get a motion to approve the purchase of it, the amendment, and the disbursement. Yeah. All those I need a motion. Somebody,
I'll move to approve the fire chief to purchase one 2025 Ford F-150 Super Cab 4x4 pickup from Lunghammer Ford of Owasso, located at 1960 East Main Street, Owasso, Michigan, 48867, for an amount not to exceed $50,612, and include the payment upon invoice when the truck is delivered.
Support.
all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
And I move to approve the 2025 budget amendment number 22 as presented.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Who was the support?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the tree ordinance. We're going to go through like we did last time. We're going to just go to the public comments, come up, give your name, address, any comments that you have. Understand that you have 5 minutes. I will, as a courtesy, let you know when you get to 4 so you can wrap it up and get the things in there you need to get in there. And understand also the board doesn't respond. Then from there, we'll go to the online and bring it back up to the board. So at this point, does anybody in the audience want to come up? Well, let me start here first, please. Okay.
Got my glasses this time.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll quickly repeat, but I moved from Lake Orion to Independence because it was so beautiful. And the amount of the greenery and the landscape, and I do love it here. The only difference is it takes me 5 minutes to pull out of my subdivision, and before I used to pull right out. But I did work as a planning commissioner, so I want to emphasize the fact that some of the changes in Lake Orion that happened after I
You know what, I hate to do this to you because I did
Oh,
it to you
oh,
once
the-
before.
the
but
microphone.
I just got nudged. I don't think you gave us your name
Oh,
and
Tom, okay,
address.
yeah, I did.
Again.
Thomas Price, 8003 Crescent Drive.
Okay, thank you. Please continue.
Okay, and I just had to iterate that any additions to make nature more abundant around here would be enthusiastically supported by the residents. So I don't speak for everyone, but everyone in my neighborhood agrees with me. We love our neighborhood, many, many trees, and we'd like to see that spread through the township. And I wanted to just do a list of residential areas in Michigan that have tree ordinances. Canton, Shelby, Grosse Ile, Bloomfield, Troy, Saugatuck, and areas with no tree ordinances: Warren, Sterling Heights, Waterford, St. Clair Shores, Detroit, and Westland. And I'd like to be on the first list as a resident of this area. And I did want to quote from the Opportunities 2030 Independence Township document, master plan. The rural landscape gives the township its character as part of the regional effort to connect and protect green infrastructure. The township is prioritizing the conservation of high-quality wetlands, woodlands, and priority water bodies. So greenery is mentioned there. I think that's left out of the 2035 opportunities. I don't know why it was taken out. And the local government should respect and even enthusiastically pursue planning that preserves a peaceful home life and community, and be less to the service of opportunistic developers and investors chasing a dollar who don't even live here. We have a responsibility to the future generations to protect our human connection to nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm keeping it down to 18 pages.
Perfect.
Joe Sucher, 5071 Hilltop Estates Drive, Clarkston, 48348. I'm going to talk about generally trees, but not a tree ordinance specifically, but just how we got to where we are in terms of the tree ordinance. And I'm going to start with ROAC, because ROAC is really how I got involved in the township, and that was several years ago. And the ROAC history was in the preservation of land and trees and whatnot and so forth. So we had our very first meeting, I think in June of 23, July of 23, we drafted some bylaws. In August of 23, we came up with a list of the parcels that were larger than 5 acres in this township, and we started to work on examining each one of those. We didn't finish it, but it could be a work in progress, but at least we know where the open land is and what can be done with it. We also, in September 23, made our first land acquisition proposal. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear to everybody, we are just an advisory board. You know, we don't buy land, we don't purchase land, we don't hire, we don't fire, we advise the board. And now we're taking a little bit different approach. We're working with Parks and Rec. We're working with the Planning Commission to help them in some of their objectives. But our role is an advisory role. So we did that first advisory request of the board to purchase that 38 or 40 acres there adjacent to Clintonwood Park. That was our first venture into this, and I guess it worked out pretty good. We bought it, and we're doing something with it, so that's good. Making a point, we did not buy it. We just recommended somebody buy it. We needed to educate ourselves in this whole thing about tree preservation, nature, woodlands, wetlands, et cetera, et cetera. So in October, we had our first education, green infrastructure presentation by Oakland County. It was in the back of the room here, and they gave us about a 2-hour presentation on what green infrastructure is, what it means to communities, et cetera, et cetera. In November, we divided into 3 subcommittees: a regulation committee, a communications subcommittee, and the land committee, which was looking at those parcels over 5 acres. And our regulatory commission, and we were struggling at this time because we really had no orders to follow, no directions. Bylaws were basically what we created. And we started to try and move forward. Jerry Fisher, who you know, was appointed to be our chairman of the Regulations Committee, which probably got us to drift off a little bit beyond advising and more into creating. But I'll get into that later. In January, in December, then we had some more education by the Blue Heron Committee, and I think most of you know who they are up here and what their role is. In January, we proposed a text amendment. Now, it's a little unusual for us to propose the details of a text amendment, but you don't need to, but it would be good to understand where that was created from. The Regulations Subcommittee, who was headed by who? Jerry Fisher. Who was Jerry Fisher? Former supervisor here, former city attorney here, current city attorney in the village. He's written many ordinances. So, I mean, it was just natural for him to go beyond a very general suggestion. Yes, sir?
You have 1 minute.
I have 1 minute. Oh, I'm not nearly done. But yes, I am. We continue then to work on tree preservations and preservations of nature. And I just want to just read something, and then I'll just conclude by this, because this is kind of why we have what you're sitting on today. Intent and purpose of the tree preservation pending site plan approval. This is back in January of '24. This isn't anything to do with today, but we were working on this back then. In the development and execution of this section, authoritative sources have informed that the preservation of existing trees and forests serve important public purposes in terms of physical, aesthetic, environmental, and economic interest for the present and future residents of the township. The purposes served include absorption of airborne pollutants, provision of visual screening, protection of groundwater recharge and subsurface water resources, prevention of erosion, sedimentation, and surface runoff, establishment of wind and storm damage buffering, maintenance of natural beauty, maintenance of township heritage, and the provision and protection of wildlife habitat, including animal pathways that may be revealed through the process of site plan review. Okay, we take this seriously, and whatever that we can do to help in this, we're here to do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Any other comments? Yes, please.
Bruce Quigley, 5357 Oak Park Drive. Let me start with, I've seen a lot of stuff on social media in regards to this. First, I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do. Okay, you guys put up with a lot of stuff from people that talk online. I've even seen recently some name calling. That's, to me, very troubling. I would like to ask anybody who's doing that to stop, because what all these people are doing, whether they're paid full-time or whether they're the trustees, it takes a lot, and you're not going to please everybody. I mean, I'm not pleased all the time, and I think most people know that, but in regards to what's going on with the trees, I planted 37 trees in my yard last year, so I like trees. Okay, I'm all for it. Now, I did hear some discussion of, with the ordinance, trees grow, whatever. Some of these trees, like a typical oak tree, doesn't gain maturity for sometimes up to 100 years. All right, they'll grow maybe a foot, 2 feet. Pine trees grow fast, but they usually don't last as long. Same with poplars. They grow real fast, but they don't last as long. A maple, same thing. They grow slow. But the maples, the oaks, they tend to last longer. But you're still talking 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 decades before they're mature. I was fortunate to grow up in Thundera Park. And I don't know if any of you know what Thundera Park, trees everywhere. It's like a forest and a mountain, you know. Loved it, grew up with it, still love it. My father still lives there. There's other neighborhoods that have trees, and they've been able to work around the trees. And I really believe that is what I guess I can only speak for myself, but I think a lot of people would agree. That's what they want to keep. You know, I've seen a lot of changes in the 55 years I've been here. So a lot of trees have come down. I think what I don't ever want to see again, and I'd like to see that stop, is what happened across the street, where they're going to cut everything down and put in a bunch of cluster houses. You know, that's old news, I know, but like Dave said, what's done is done. Let's move forward. You know, why keep going that way when we still have the beauty in our township, and we should try and keep it. You know, as far as the thought of, and I know Terry mentioned overreach last meeting. That is scary because it can easily happen. I mean, everybody remembers the seatbelt law. When we voted to pass that, it was only supposed to be a secondary offense. Now they have stings out there and pull you over all the time for not having a seatbelt. Okay, if we let this ordinance go through without strict oversight, what's to say that there isn't gonna have to be permits to cut your tree down in your yard? You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but there's always a chance that it can just get a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. Right now, it's only for what needs a site review, which would be subdivisions, whatever, you know, but it shouldn't affect residential single-family homes, which I'm okay with that. But it is a concern. I think it's definitely something that I would want to see is some sort of ordinance, but it has to be dealt with, in my opinion, carefully to not get to the overreach where the government's in control of everything. Because we're really going to have a problem, like I said, people have to pull a permit to cut a tree down, you know, so. But anyway, that's my 2 cents, and again, I thank you all for doing what you do. But, and I do support the ordinance. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Yes, sir.
Hi, Brian Posby, 6108 Lake Walden Drive. So I spoke last time about this topic and talked about my subdivision that was developed by Buzz Silverman in 1994. We talked about all the trees that he left, the towering spruces from the Campfire Girls campground. He made a lot of money as a developer. He marketed it as a lush, he had nature preserve signs everywhere. What happened to him, I'm going to call him and find out why 30 years later he's doing this travesty across the street. I know he's involved with others, but again, you know, come take a look through my subdivision. It's why we moved here, okay? I came from Warren, and your elderly lady who came to pay her tax bill on her little parcel, of course she has no interest in what the trees look like here, and she's worried about what her value is maybe. And a couple of trees aren't going to impact that. I ask you, what's her return on investment? It's tremendous. If she bought that land in the 60s and 70s, she's made a gold mine of money, trees aside. So I think we need to start taking some of the profit motive out of that and decide, where do we want to live? What do we want it to look like? I know what I want it to look like in the 31 years that I've been here. So, and I'm not afraid of any oversight about trees on my lawn. That is not going to happen. That's the kind of rubbish that gets posted and gets people all upset, because that's hogwash. That's not going to happen. Okay, but we do need this ordinance. We needed it 15 years ago. So I think we need to get something in place. If it needs to be watered down a little bit more to get it through, let's do it. But the idea going forward and having the Wild West, where more of these developments are going to happen down Lake Walden, all these roads we're going to lose the last of it. Well, I can tell you what, the trees are not going to be cleared on the corner. I assure you. They are not going to be cleared on that corner. I'll be standing there, because I've had it. The clear cutting upset me and upset dozens and dozens of people that I've talked with. If you want to bring the profit-minded people in here to have an open forum, let's do it. But I'll stack this place with people upset about what's happening. Read the social media. People are not happy with what went on over there. And the couple of cultists that are afraid of big government, they got other issues. That's it.
Yep, please.
Ray Llewellyn, 9254 Pine Knob Road. My husband and I have been here for close to 40 years. In this township, and I'm not talking just on Walden or just on Pine Knob or just on Sashba, but if you travel throughout the township, there's a lot of legacy trees. These trees have been here for well over 150 years. So this township wasn't just like the plains with no trees on it. And the trees we see is because somebody planted them. No, these trees have been here for many, many years. They've seen many storms come through, but they still stood. And I would just ask, you know, for some people who have interest in real estate, if you talk to other realtors outside of this room, they would tell you, oh, you want to sell your place and you've got all these nice trees? Well, that just increased the value. But instead, some people are going to try and convince this room last time that was full, and we were here till after 11, that, oh no, these trees, let's just go to Weingart's and everybody buy a chainsaw and start cutting them down. We're asking you as a board that you got elected by these residents, each voter in this township, to represent us. Not just represent, oh, this is what I think. Talk to us. Find out what we want. You may not agree with all of what we want, but at least listen to us and take that into consideration with your vote. Thank you much.
Good evening. I'm Jim Eppink. I live at 9336 Sashbaugh. I love trees. I'm 100% convinced everybody on the board loves trees. I'm 100% convinced everyone in the room and everyone in our community loves trees. I'm thoroughly convinced that we all have the same values. I mean, we love Independence Township. It's a great place and it's a well-treated community. What I don't believe in is this binary conclusion that if I like trees, you must not. If I like property rights, you must not. You know, it's a conversation, it's a civic debate that I think we should be having, and we're trying to have. My concern with this ordinance is that it's not a tree ordinance. It's an ordinance, and that's okay. It's an ordinance that's more focused on shaping development. And I'm for that as well. I'm a consultant to developers. I understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of development. And so I don't think there's anything wrong as a community that says, hey, we should strengthen our development codes. We've got codes, they make a lot of sense. Absolutely, they can get better. I'll show you where the skeletons are. I'll show you where the holes are. I work in communities throughout the country, throughout Michigan. I know where developers exploit rules, and I think that we have opportunities in Independence Township to strengthen those and make it reasonable. What I am concerned about is this ordinance absolutely will get this township sued. It's poorly written, it's based in negativity, and I got thinking about it. Ordinances or laws across our country are really based in positivity. They're ideas that we as a community value. They hold them up high and they say, hey, this is important to us, let's create a code. This idea that, well, we're only going to apply it to a certain group, developers or large landowners, because private owners don't clear cut their trees, so therefore they shouldn't do that. That doesn't make sense to me. It's probably fair to say only boys between 16 and 45 speed. So why don't we just pass speed laws that only apply to men 16 to 45? My 85-year-old mom probably never speeds, but we apply safety laws across the board because that's what's important to us. So if this truly is a tree ordinance, then I think we should do what Bloomfield Hills does and says, hey, all trees are important. Every property owner, whether you own 1 acre or 100 acres, can cut down 2 trees a year. Bloomfield Hills does that. They apply it to all trees, and it may or may not be a reasonable approach. What this does is this targets individuals. It very clearly, from the discussion, is going to go after bad actors. It has an agenda to shape development. And my challenge to the board, to our community, is to say, let's address our development code. Let's look at things like Bloomfield Hills has done and strengthen the number of trees that have to go in, the number of the size of the buffers, all those different things. But when we target individuals or we target groups of people with individual laws based on negativity, we open ourselves up to lawsuits. The one thing I do know about developers have a lot of lawyers and a lot of money, and they will sue this township. Canton Township got sued. It was determined that their tree ordinance, which frankly I think was less aggressive than this ordinance, became a governmental taking, and they got struck down in Lansing in the Supreme Court is a governmental taking. They've just had to rewrite this ordinance. The reason I say it was more aggressive because they had a 1-to-1 replacement ratio. This is a 1-inch to 1-inch replacement, which frankly means if I take down a 12-inch tree in Canton, I only have to replace 1 tree. If I take it down a 12-inch tree in Independence Township, I'll have to replace 5 trees at 2.5 inches. So mathematically, it doesn't work. Northfield Township, we were just there. Their ordinance, their new tree ordinance was passed. The next month, a developer that I work with went there, and they couldn't physically fit all the replacement trees on the property, and so they had to pay into a tree fund. The tree fund price was going to be $530,000. And so the very next meeting after their tree ordinance was placed, the applicant went to the ZBA. They understood that the township was in a tough position and would almost likely get sued. And so in that case, the zoning board had to grant a variance against their brand new tree ordinance because it was just unreasonable and poorly written. So my challenge to the board is to take the high ground, to uphold the values that we all share. Let's look at our development codes and strengthen those. Or conversely, let's say we love trees, but let's love all trees like Bloomfield Hills did. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience?
Mark Newsom, 9410 Ortonville Road. I'm all for some sort of a tree ordinance. This one, the give and the take on the cutting and the replanting, I'm not so game on. And quite honestly, I think the ordinance should even take a step more. And the reason being, I'm witnessing it across the street from my house. I've lived there 33 years. The hillside across my house used to be a pumpkin patch. I watched the trees grow. Ridgewood Church put their church in, 20,000 square foot up on the hill, and they cut very few trees down when they did it. Now, 20 years later, 21 years later, they have added onto their parking lot, doubled their parking lot, without regard for any permits or anything. They just did it. And every time they do it, they don't plant their trees that they're supposed to. But now I witnessed this last week a backhoe destroy probably a dozen 20-foot pine trees that could have been planted elsewhere on the property or donated to the township. Our parks need trees. But now they have to get into the expansion of their new parking lot and their new septic field. In order to do this, they have to take down several hundred trees. A lot of them I've watched grow. Some of them are useless, locusts, short lifespan. But they're going to cut all these down And there's no, basically, any supervision as to what they can cut down, because it doesn't fall under the category of this new ordinance. It's existing. So nobody's to stop them from cutting, almost clear cutting it. And something a lot of people don't think about is where the animals are gonna go. They started construction probably 10 days ago, and 2 deer have already got killed right in front of it. It confuses wildlife. So none of that is considered when this clear cutting of land or replanting of trees takes place. So like I say, I'm all for an ordinance. This one, that something needs to be done. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience?
Good afternoon, Board. Frank Migliore, 4570 Woodhull, Clarkson, Michigan. Gentlemen that brought the other subjects up here, I will say the social media is absolutely sadly, and taking pot shots at anybody on this board whom I wholly respect is a problem. That's personal, and I think it's wrong. And if someone wants a position and they want to utilize this board as a bouncing bag, wrong. They don't belong there. This position of an ordinance, I agree, it may be needed because I've seen ordinances work in the past. This one here does not work. There's good reasons why it doesn't work and could be amended. And I think the board has the capacity, and the Planning Commission has the capacity to rewrite, to go back and to review it. I'm aware of a couple of different properties off of Dixie Highway that the commercial aspect of this at this point, and I say commercial because that's what it's zoned, to take the trees down, and they said $500,000, and like, the particular property is $1.5 million. By the time you get into it, and what trees and issues and cuts, and then getting the land done. Across the street, I agree that there was some issues with that, but the reality is the tax base that that's going to pay for in this community, the school systems in the next 20 years, is something that we as a community need to be very much aware of. Trees don't pay taxes. They don't. Developers that come in, individuals, and I think we can, and because I think the ordinances already are in place, that can monitor that. If they need to be amended, fine. But this one here doesn't work. And there are ways in the planning commissions that I've already sat in front of and know along the way. I'm not opposed to anybody on this board that may be for it or against it. But the reality is from a developer or from a landowner, which I happen to be aware of one, particularly on Dixie Highway, that has 40 acres, 50 acres sitting out there right off of Deer Lake. Plans were submitted years ago to take a look, and this area said, look, let's take a look at that. They'd like to have that sort of commercial development, that sort of hospital style of development that supports individuals and jobs in this community. I don't know what a tree does. I believe that you in turn, because of there are other properties that can show you examples, they can put this in place and make it actually truly picturesque. Is Deer Lake going to be affected? Not a chance. Because candidly, the homeowners and everybody else want to make certain that no one touches it. It's pristine. It's what we live for. It's what we are here for. So I recommend either A, kill this entire completely, go back to find something else that's going to work. You already have an ordinance in place. It's already there. It's usable. Planning commissions and this board just can do what it takes to be there. And as a property owner circumstance, it's not about necessarily money. It has to be about the aesthetics and the value. When someone pays $3-4 million for something, and all of a sudden they have to pay another $1.5 million just to get it taken care of, and they lose that profitability, it doesn't work. Thanks.
I think that's everybody. Is there one, unless you, sir, you wanted to come up? No? Okay. All right. How about online? Is there anybody online? And we do. I think is it Tasha?
Yes. Hi, Tasha Shergan, 9393 Thornhill Drive. I'm saddened to see how small the turnout is for today, but like Ray said, when the meeting went into the closed session and they were there till 11 o'clock a couple weeks ago, it's not an acceptable experience for citizens who are also trying to live their life after they voted in the board that's supposed to protect the citizens. My kids tell me I'm the Lorax because I'm so concerned about this whole tree ordinance, but we moved here to get away from all of the heaviness of a cement world because we lived in the Metro Detroit area. We love this place. It feels like up north to us, and it's part of what makes our community so unique and desirable. It helps with property values, amongst other things. And I don't want to live in a place like Troy or Rochester. If I didn't care, I would live there. But I love the nature that Clarkston provides. The nonsense that happened at Walden, right across the street from you guys, I don't ever want to see something like that happen again. The township was so up in arms. The citizens were so up in arms. And all of our voices it didn't even matter because it was done before anybody even knew what was going on. When I moved here, I joined the ROAC, the Residential Open Spaces Advisory Committee that Joseph had mentioned earlier. And for over 1.5 years, we worked on a tree ordinance. We were in discussion, we tweaked it, we evolved it, and it turned into something that the Planning Commission could introduce to the board. And so here we are. The board took an oath to protect the citizens in the township, and the tree ordinance is here to protect our beautiful township. So where are your loyalties? Because what I've seen over the last 2 meetings, I'm so disappointed in this board. We've got a few board members that I'm so grateful for because they're standing the ground. But my question to you is, where is your loyalty? Because it does not appear that you are with us. You say you're with us, but your actions suggest otherwise. And I'm just so disappointed in what I'm seeing from this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Tenner, can you help me? I can't read that.
Oh, sure, that's Kay Melchert.
You're muted, just so you know. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, Kathleen Melchert, 5500 Walden Road. I'll read I gives first, and then I have a comment, but more off the cuff. But while I fully support thoughtful environmental stewardship, I respectfully question whether such a sweeping restriction on private land use would hold up legally. Courts in Michigan have already weighed in on similar issues. For example, Foster versus City of Detroit, and other cases, like Mr. Umpick said, in Canton, municipalities are facing these legal challenges and significant costs when attempting to enforce these ordinances that overreach private property rights. These types of legal actions can burden townships with taxpayer-funded litigation and ultimately end with ordinances being struck down or settlements being paid. In terms of enforcement, my own experience raises concerns. When trees were cut on my property, I sought support, but the township declined to intervene. They originally got involved, but then I was told by several parties that there were other people involved that had friends on the board, not the 4 that keep getting attacked, but others, and possibly due to personal connections between parties involved, nothing was done. I share this, and it's not as an accusation, because I too am so tired of these accusations, but to highlight how selective these enforcements can lead to mistrust and perceived inequities. It's important that we enact rules and we have things, but we need to consider a better way. And I don't feel that this particular, stance is the right way. And I think it's only going to cost us money. I think we should consider solutions that encourage preservation through education and incentives, not punishment. In the long run, that protects our environment and our township's financial and legal stability. But you have people here tonight. There is even 2 people on there that have spoken tonight that came out to my property. And I have a 10-acre parcel, and the condos next door have been cutting down my trees on my property for over 5 years now. I've gone to the township has confirmed it, they've walked the property. Everyone at first, when they find out, including the people that just, wanted to scold you, said, oh my goodness, this is horrible, this is awful, we'll help you. But then when they found out, oh, they might have relationships or other things, no one, those same people would not help me. They do not help me. I have my trees cut down all the time. But yet people want to stand about, and it just has to be across the board. It has to be something that's going to work, that isn't going to make us legally susceptible to more fees. And it has to be something that's going to work for everyone across. And I just think it's very unfortunate that I think the board was very clear. Everyone stated on there that they want to make sure that the beauty and the, all of the aspects and the positive, things of the trees are kept. No one on that board said we don't want trees. And I think that trying to make this a either you're on this side or you're on that side, it's not that. It just has to be done right. So just maybe a do better, be better, and make sure that we do something that covers it. But I do not think that this particular ordinance is what we need or what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else online? Okay, I'm going to close public comments on this and bring it back to the board. We will go through some discussion on this. Again, just as a reminder that you need to be recognized by the chair. You have 10 minutes. You get 2 opportunities. Everybody should get a chance to talk first before the second round begins. So who would like to begin? Trustee Nell Matthews.
A couple of people brought up this case, but that was, what I was going to talk about tonight was the Canton ordinance, October of 2021, that the Sixth Circuit Court went in favor of the property owners. Strict ordinances that heavily restrict or prevent property owners from removing trees, even for development or safety reasons, can be argued as infringing on private property rights. The argument is that if a landowner wants to remove a tree to build something and cannot, then the government has effectively taken a portion of their land without compensation, violating the Fifth Amendment's taking clause. This was demonstrated in a recent case where the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that in Canton, Michigan, their township tree ordinance was an unconstitutional taking because the township could not adequately justify the mitigation requirements imposed on the property owners seeking to remove trees. Stringent tree ordinances can increase development costs by requiring specific building footprints or delaying construction due to the process of obtaining permits and or undertaking mitigation efforts, example, replanting or paying into a tree fund. In some cases, the cost and delay of challenging these ordinances can be prohibitive for developers. Concerns can arise when tree ordinances impose mitigation requirements like replanting a certain number of trees for each one removed that are deemed excessive or not related to the actual impact of the tree removal. For example, a court found that an ordinance requiring replacing one tree with 3 or paying into a tree fund lacked the necessary rough proportionality to be constitutional. The ruling by the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals dealt with landowners' private property rights in Canton Township's tree ordinance. The ordinance requires landowners who remove trees to plant new ones or pay into a fund to ensure there's not a net loss of trees. Canton Township ordered a property owner who cleared more than 150 trees from his property to plant replacement trees or deposit more than $47,000 into a township tree fund. The court ruled the township didn't show that it properly assessed the burden to the landowners. The court basically ruled that Canton Township did not prove that it was going to benefit the city as much as it burdened the owner. It really only impacts this one company in terms of direct scope, but it sends a message to a lot of other places about how valid their tree ordinances are. So I'm here to protect the township from a lawsuit. I think this can be reviewed and done better, but I don't like it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Do you want to say some things?
We get to talk twice, sure, I'll throw it out there.
Trustee Morocco.
First of all, I probably should have stopped it in the beginning and got up and made a presentation. I do prefer it when we tell the public what we're actually talking about before we do an agenda item, since I don't have, the Planning Commission chairman was unable to make it tonight, and we were restricted from the consultants that I requested to be here, which I find is another attempt to manipulate the outcome of this. I had them at the last meeting. We've been, the Planning Commission's been hindered in many, many ways from doing this ordinance because other people on the board don't want it. I am no doubt that I'm not changing their minds tonight, but since I get to talk, I'm going to. Maybe what I should do is vote against it, and then it'll pass. I don't know. Somebody threw that suggestion out there. But the proposed amendment to the Township Ordinance are based on the unanimous support from the Planning Commission meeting of July 10th, years of deliberation from multiple planning commissions, input from the Residential Open Space Advisory Committee, and public comments. These procedural proposed zoning ordinance amendments give the township a greater ability to identify landmark trees, woodland, and forest canopies, better allowing the township to manage clear cuts and tree removal for further developments. It creates incentives to preserve trees and allows for a standard of preservation to be set. It establishes tree preservation regulations only on properties requiring a site plan review. This does not affect residential single-family homes. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there that this somehow is eliminating the ability for builders and developers to cut trees down. They clearly need to cut trees down to put in developments. That makes sense. They have a right to build. What the intent of this has always been is to give the township an opportunity to have the ability to know what's there and then be able to have a better development planned, not no development, a better development. We're using the information that we were never given in the beginning of the project. Now, consultants, had they been here, would be able to concur, but at the last meeting, they stated that a lot of developers already provide tree inventories. Do you know why? Because most people require them. It's just what you do. We're just so far behind the times that, so we get it anyway. We had it on Monarch, we had it on Silverman's property across the road. It's just 20 years ago, they were inventorying trees. This ordinance gives them a provision to not have to inventory all the trees if the trees are going to be preserved. So that's not true that there's this huge cost. It also has concessions for adding landscaping if you leave trees that are there. So there's a savings in the replantings, Most of the stuff that was said here, is silly, and it's just the other talking point. We all know what the election was about. We know what the residents want. It's a very weak ordinance. It's definitely defendable. We've put years into this. We've had it reviewed. We've talked to consultants who've written many of them. They're gonna, there's talk of doing some other weak thing so they can save face later, and that's probably what'll be the outcome of this. The biggest point I want to make is that the whole time the Planning Commission's been hindered. They've had their budget taken. They've had consultants restrictions. Clearly tonight, I specifically requested them be here. I called them. They said that they were not approved to come. So it's just more manipulation, more ways of getting what the majority of this board wants, and it really doesn't matter what's in the ordinance at this point. It's waste of time even talking about it anymore to try to convince it to change. But that's all I got to say for my first shot.
Okay. Anybody else?
I took down a few of my own thoughts here, and again, just talked about this at the last meeting, and it was really an effort to gain an understanding of why and what this ordinance is. And my understanding is this the effort itself has been years in the making. I believe as far back as 23, the ROAC, which was established, worked in tandem with the Planning Commission and with our consultants, who's been with us for 40 years and has presented a proposal. And again, I do wish that Carlisle Wortman was here because they could speak to affirm at least, because you're just hearing from one individual tonight regarding how much teeth or lack thereof that this ordinance has. Just thinking in terms of being a private property owner, there's no shortage of prohibitions against how we use our property. I can't open up an auto mechanic shop out of my garage. I can't put a car up on jacks and just leave it in my driveway. There are limits to my ability to burn, have a bonfire. There are restrictions relative to that. From the development side, there are setbacks, there are height restrictions, aesthetic limitations. So I mean, there are maybe a handful of townships in the whole state that have zero zoning, and many of them are establishing that now in light of other types of development that are being attracted to the state. So I don't think there really isn't a world that exists where there is an absence of some level of regulation and property right, a limit to one's full enjoyment of property rights. Even those of us, I'm not one, but I know there are a number of communities that, site condo developments as an example, you can't park a recreational vehicle in your driveway. You can't put up a fence if you have a dog. There are limitations all over, and so those are some of my thoughts about the limits that they're already imposed. So the question before me is, would an ordinance like this detract from or enhance our quality of living in Independence Township? And that's ultimately the question before me, because I will acknowledge that unbridled Texas A&M style bonfires in my neighbor's yard, prohibiting those is probably good for the overall community, right? And not allowing people to run commercial enterprises out of their garage is probably a good thing, right? There are reasonable limitations, because while I assert certain rights, my neighbor has rights as well. And I do my best to keep up on the Planning Commission meetings, and I was recently listening to June 12th, and it was just during open comment. There was a gentleman that lived in the subdivision there off of Clarkston near Sashabaw, adjacent to where those trees were cleared recently, and he lived here for 20 years and was wondering how all of a sudden he could hear all this road noise. And he boiled it all down to the fact that these trees had been cleared. Again, right at the beginning of the June 12th meeting. And again, nothing the township could do per se, but it's unfortunate that he had purchased this property with quiet enjoyment. He was very purposeful in where he chose to live because he wanted a quiet environment, and he no longer has that. Again, the developer asserted his rights to clear whatever trees were cleared, and so forth. So again, the question in my mind, does an ordinance like this enhance or detract from our quality of life, and are there reasonable compromises built in? I'm of the opinion that there are, because I will be the first to stand up if I feel that this in application, in its enforcement, if I saw where this was an overreach or an overzealous attempt, then I would be among the first to step up to right the ship. And I think there are a great many people in this community and certainly on this board that would that would do the same. And I do remember the Canton case, and it was about a decade ago, if my memory serves me correctly, and I think they even tried to seek, the developer tried to seek relief through the legislature, through a state rep, and tried to pass a specific piece of legislation, very carved out. So I do think their ordinance is different and unique to what we're proposing tonight. I think context does matter on that front. So those are some of my opening comments and thoughts. But I do know that, again, this has been in the works for at least a couple years, unanimously passed by our planning commission, and I'm a bit dismayed that anyone that was reluctant or against this didn't spend more time investing in those bodies to try and help and shape this in a way they thought would be palatable. Thank you.
Trustee Hayward.
Thank you. I'm also disappointed that Carlisle Wortman's not here, because I had some questions for them, but a couple of things that were said. Well, one thing that I'd like to say before I get into the research that I did, because I'm going to talk about money tonight, because everybody wants to know money seems to be a big thing, so I'm going to talk about that. But I saw the last, we'll call it administration or whatever you want, they made a lot of decisions based on lawsuits. So they didn't do anything because they were always afraid of getting sued. I'm not that person. So everybody was afraid to get sued. We've never gotten sued. So, this has obviously gone through a lot of it's been looked at for a very long time. And it was also stated tonight that there are things in place already to protect these things, to protect what we have. Well, I didn't see the protect. The reason I ran to begin with was because of what happened across the street. There was nothing that stopped that. In fact, the chair of the planning commission at the time said he was proud of that development. That bothered me. So I did some research on tree ordinances and property values. So studies consistently show that tree and woodland ordinances positively impact property values by preserving urban forests and green spaces, which enhance aesthetic, environmental, and social benefits. A 2018 study from the University of Washington found in homes and neighborhoods with mature trees and high-quality landscapes have property values 7 to 20% higher than comparable properties without such features. Specifically, homes adjacent to naturalistic parks or open spaces saw values increase of 8 to 20%, with the effect diminishing beyond a half-mile radius. The study also noted that commercial properties with high-quality landscaping had rental rates 7% higher, indicating broader economic benefits. Now I'm going to dig into the study. While development costs can be greater for lots where trees were conserved, builders can recover extra costs of preserving homes through higher sales prices and faster sales for houses on wooded lots. The presence of larger trees in yards and street trees can add from 3 to 15% to home values throughout neighborhoods. Homes that are adjacent to naturalistic parks and open spaces are valued at 8 to 20% higher than comparable properties, with the positive price effect declining to near zero about a half mile away. So, study found 7% higher rental rates for commercial offices having higher quality landscapes. Shoppers claim that they will spend 9 to 12% more for goods and services in central business districts having high quality tree canopy. Studies relating to the presence of trees to residential property values have evaluated a range of urban forests and landscape conditions on single-family homes. Although there have been few exceptions, properties with trees are generally preferred to comparable properties without trees, with the trend across studies being a price increase of about 7%. Street trees appear to add value even to adjacent properties up to 100 feet away in one study. Mature trees in high-income neighborhoods, you get a 10 to 15% increase in your property value. It goes on to talk about parks and open space, and the percentage residential development adjacent to green belts, 32% higher. Then we'll talk about shopper patronage measures are commonly used to retail marketing studies. So, study participants projected their probable patronage behavior while viewing street and sidewalk scenarios. More positive responses were found in places having trees compared to no tree settings across cities of different sizes. And I'm not going to read everything I highlighted, but I did highlight a lot. And I was going to go through all of it, but I'm not. But I do have some other things I'm going to talk about. A 2023 systematic review of remote sensing-based studies confirmed that urban forests, including those protected by ordinances, significantly boost residential property values. The review analyzed 39.3% of studies across the U.S. and found that tree canopy cover preserved through ordinances correlates with higher housing prices. Parameters like tree crown volume and biodiversity were linked to increased property values due to ecosystem services such as air quality improvement and aesthetic appeal. Penn State Extension's Guide 2025 cites that mature trees associated with homes can raise property values by up to 7%. Communities with tree preservation of ordinances, which protect mature and native trees during development, see increased property tax revenues and enhanced community appeal. Without such ordinances, municipalities risk losing these economic benefits due to unchecked tree removal during land development. Here's another study. I have pages of studies if you want to read them all. I'm not going to go through all of them. I thought to. But every single one of them says, guess what? It increases our values of our property. The reason that we need this ordinance is because we have to put something in place. Right now, yeah, we have a great planning commission right now. They understand what a PUD is. They understand what balances they can have, what we want, what we don't want. But I'm thinking about the future of, well, what if we don't have such a great planning commission? They need a guideline. They need something to go on, because if we already had a guideline, it failed. I talked to a lot of people when I was running for this office. I went to a lot of homes, and this is the card that I put on everybody's door. Here's the two things that I had on here. Preserve township character. That's what I ran on. This is what I'm standing on. Preserve trees and green space. This is what I ran on. This is what I'm standing on. This is why I support this ordinance. I didn't promise something I didn't plan to do. I'm doing what I promised to do. And that's all that I'm here for. I don't know anybody. I don't have any special friends anywhere. I got elected based on this, and I'm telling you, every person that I talked to, it was important to them. That's it.
Trustee Brown, or sorry, Treasurer Brown, or Clerk Newbeck? Not, then I'll go. Couple of things. I want to first address nobody asked me about Carl Wortman and those guys being here. I never said anything about it. So I was fully expecting one of them to be here. That aside. The second thing is that, you know, my issue is still, as I said the last time, my Rubicon, or the red line in the sand, is that I don't want to see the government putting their hand in my pocket anymore. I don't want to give them an opportunity. I don't like what's in their hand in there now. And I believe that we can do better. I would like to see better development. I would like to see better commercial development. When I say that, in trees and all that, I think we have the basis to do that. I think there are some things there that we could fine tune and make this better. Matter of fact, that was your consultant, or not yours, the township's consultant on this. I'm gonna say yours, Sam, because you brought the motion forward. That actually came back. The owner of the company said that it does impact residential. He said it on the video. You can go back and watch it. He said it does impact residential. So from that standpoint, that's where my concern is. It bleeds over. If it didn't bleed over, I don't want to say I don't care necessarily about the cost to the developers. They'll always find a way. Developers are smart. They'll figure it out. I like the idea of the aesthetics. I would like the idea of having trees. I find it ironic that we're talking about the place across the street, and two of the members that are advocating for this voted yes on the 13 variances they came for that allowed for a lot of that, that allowed that to happen. Okay? I think what needs to happen is that we need to do a better job at enforcing things at the planning level, give them some more tools there. I don't think this is it. I'm all for beefing them up, giving them more tools. The consultant came back and said that Springfield doesn't have one because they have a very tough landscaping. Matter of fact, even the chair of the planning commission sent me an email, did not ask for it to be read into the minutes, that's why I didn't do it up front, but said that they would prefer, I'll read the exact email so I don't get in trouble on this. I cannot make it to this Tuesday's board meeting. I will be out of town. I would prefer you either refer it back to the planning commission for revisions or postpone it to an unspecified future meeting. You can't postpone something to an unspecified meeting. So from that standpoint, he's asking, the chair of the planning is asking, let's bring it back to the planning commission, let's tighten it up. I think that makes a lot of sense. And if they can tighten it up, that would be fantastic. Bring it back where there is no way it can cross that red line. You most likely would have my support. Okay? That's all I have to say at this time.
I just have a question. Yeah,
yes.
sorry. I just have a question about where you saw that it impeded on personal or like residential property.
So
I know he might have said that, but.
Well, I'm going off of what he said.
Oh, okay.
Being the owner of the company and actually being the consultant.
Right.
So,
I just thought
yeah.
maybe that's something, because I didn't see anything in there that would have affected that. So it's unfortunate, again, that he's not here, so we can't ask him directly, so.
I agree. Trustee Morocco.
We on round two?
We are on round two.
Okay. I just have a couple of points. I disagree with the bleeding over because it only bleeds over if somebody takes residential property and converts it into a for-profit commercial development. So that's the bleed over, is if you had residential property and you were rezoning it to become a neighborhood or a project. So I'd separate the two. One is, I clearly see as different, not just the pleasure of living on a piece of property. Secondly, I kind of look at it more as weakening the ordinance than tightening it, but I think that's probably the path that the majority of this board's going to go with. And as far as the property value based upon ordinances, the one I want to bring up for just as a point of, point is keyholing. So here's an ordinance, and a lot of the people in this room live on lakes, at least I know several of them do. We have an ordinance that was created by people on lakes who didn't want anyone else enjoying the lake. So we created an ordinance that says if you have a piece of property on a lake, it could be a 100-acre parcel, but you can only treat it as one home, one access point. You can't develop it in 30 homes and have 30 boat docks, which would increase the value probably 100% of the property value. But we've, as a township, have an ordinance that just completely strips them of the value of their property. The people now who have undeveloped land adjacent to riparian waterways, which is worse than what we're talking about. So I just want to make that comparison, that everybody who lives on lakes got to restrict everyone's land use and all of their personal rights and liberties so no one else can enjoy what they have, and past boards have agreed to it, stand by it, and we enforce it. So when you say that potentially, hypothetically, somebody with a piece of property could sell it to a developer to become a neighborhood and they're going to lose money because they can't mass clear, is way less impactful than what we have done and stolen from landowners. Somebody talked about the 50 acres over adjacent to Deer Lake that's undeveloped over there. That property would be worth 100 times more than it's worth right now if we didn't restrict them access to the lake, because people who live on lakes don't want anyone else enjoying the same rights they do. So I just want to put that in perspective, that this is nothing new. That was a way more aggressive taking and restriction of land than this is. And that affects residential property, not commercially zoned property, just residential property. So I think that that's important as a history lesson, that we're not above to protect the character of our community or the safety of our residents or the beauty of the township to put restrictions in place, as Jim mentioned, many of them, and we can read the ordinance. Every single thing in the ordinance does exactly that. It's based upon preservation, character of the community, quality of life. That's, every ordinance is based on that. So this is no different, no more taking, no more, boo-hoo to the developer who thinks he's not gonna make more money because he's clearing. That's not a loss. Less profit, which we can't even prove is factual, that was all just thrown out there. No one's brought any facts. We don't even know that the topography of a piece of property would require mass clearing. I mean, the whole thing's fictional. But I just want to make that comparison, that this is nothing, we've done way worse. If that's going to be your sole argument of government overreach, we're guilty of way worse than what we're proposing. That's all. Thank you.
Good. You've already had your two. Treasurer Brown.
I just want to mention that I do live on a lake, as does Mr. Tedder, and I just want to make sure people understand the Keyhole ordinance was passed in 2017, and no one on this board was on the board when it was passed. That wasn't clear in the way it was presented. And I just want to make that clear because we didn't pass something for ourselves, because I think that would be a terrible thing to do in that situation. That's all.
My only final, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just,
Trustee
yeah,
Guterres.
what Treasurer Brown said is true. And my understanding of the keyholing ordinance is that it does, say you have a property and you have 1,000 linear feet of lakefront. You are limited to a minimum of 100-foot lakefront lots. So to Trustee Morocco's point, if you wanted to put 20 lakefront lots with 50-foot lake frontage lots, you couldn't do that under the keyholing ordinance because it does limit you to developing said property at 100 linear feet per house, is my understanding of the ordinance. And I know it because, I remember this passing, and again, not necessarily germane to where I'm at, but for someone that had a development size lot, that does severely limit the ability to develop. And again, not arguing whether it was good or bad, but that's the gist of it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. My final comment here is that, to Sam's comment about we have done things in the past, doesn't justify, in my mind, doing them going forward. If anything, if we don't learn from the past, then we're doomed to repeat it, and I would just assume we don't. At some point in time, you got to put your foot on the ground and say this is it, or throw the stick in the sand and say this is it, I'm not crossing this line, and that's just where I'm at. So at this time, we have some options. I guess we have a motion on here that could take this and advance it to the second or end it. So unless somebody else has a different motion, then can I get someone to read the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll request to approve the first reading of the revisions to ordinance 2.02 definitions, section 6.05 conceptual site plan, section 6.06 final site plan, and section 6.07 standards and granting approval. These are two separate ordinances, so I'd like to make that recommendation first.
You would like to make a motion to amend
This ordinance, 2.02 definitions, which is what calls out a tree canopy, and section 6.05 conceptual site plan, which all that does is require that they tell us in the beginning of the project what's on the property, so the planning commission knows what's there, instead of currently what's at the end of the property, which is under the standards and granting approval section. So that's We had two separate public hearings. These are two separate things. The first one is a procedural thing, allowing the planning commission more information prior to the project moving too far forward. And the second one, it has to do with the penalties and replantings and all of that. It's two completely separate ordinance changes, and they had two separate hearings at the public. Terry has a question.
Yeah.
Is this written appropriately then?
Well, that's.
It's
If
two
it's two
separate, well, it says additionally adding, so it's two separate. We agreed with the consultants to put it on the same agenda instead of bringing the first request to the board and then coming back another month later and bringing a second request because we couldn't have the public hearings at the same time. So we had two separate public hearings, and then we brought them as two units to the same motion. Carrie has a question.
Just, clerk?
The ordinance that was provided in the packet is one complete ordinance, correct?
No, it's two separate sections of the ordinance. One is 2.2 definitions and 6.6 final site plan, 6.7 standards and granting approval. The section 1109 tree preservation, article 11 environmental standards, that's all the stuff that has to do with 1 for 1 and inch for inch and replanting and all of that. That's totally separate. So if you look at the attachment I have here, sections 2.02, this is just defining what a canopied forest is, what a canopied wooded is, what a diameter is, what a invasive tree is. Those were not in the original tree ordinances. When you get to down into further, and then it says that the stuff should, the planning commission should know what's on the site in the beginning of the process instead of the end of the process to make determinations of what's there, and then it gets application and final. Then it gets to the stuff that most people are against is the 11.09 tree preservation. This is all new. The whole thing is new to the ordinance. The other one is, the first half is not all new. You can see strikeouts and text changes.
So 2.02 and 6.06 and 6.07 is an amendment to the current ordinance, is what you're saying?
And section 6.05. Yes, section 1109 tree ordinance, article 11, that's the new stuff that we
So we
had.
should have had two motions provided, and the first should have said to amend the ordinance.
Well, it's a revision. It says first reading of the revision.
But we have an existing ordinance, so you'd be amending the ordinance.
I have another question on it.
I don't know.
Because in your second part, it even says after Article 11, environmental standards, and adding 6.0B, which refers back to the 6.0 section, not just 11. So both of them are in part 2.
I don't know what to tell you, since I don't have any support from anybody. I'm not allowed to contact attorneys or consultants. I was just shooting from the hip, doing my best, So if you got me on a technicality, I don't know what to say.
You had the consultant there. So, Sam, what are you asking?
I would like to get the definitions, at least get the first part of it done, of what we had our first public hearing on, to try to at least advance that part of it so that the procedural part for the planning commission has the tools they need to do their job more adequately. That's where that started from. The rest of it was all about tree preservation and replanting and limitations. Mr. Hayward has his hand up.
So the way I see this is, I'm sorry, you didn't.
Trustee Hayward.
Thank you. The way I'm reading this is, and basically the 605B3, which Terry was alluding to, is basically, that is what requires you to present a tree survey, which is not that's part of that second motion. The second motion is the one probably most people have the problem with on this, not most people, but there are people on the board that have a problem with the second motion of what's being presented. The first motion basically updates, like Sam said, what is canopy wooded, what, basically all the definitions that you would need if you were to pass the second one. The definitions don't change what we already have, other than they've updated definitions of what trees are, what canopy wooded is, the diameter, height, canopy forested, what trees are protected, what ones, and that's what it is. The second one, motion, is requiring the tree survey and the other issues with not following, well, basically with the ordinance itself. That's really technically the ordinance, the second part.
So what, again, maybe I'm a little slow on this, but, so basically what you're asking is to amend the motion or create a separate motion, a new motion, that says, I want to approve the modifications to section 2.02 only. Or are we adding some more decimal?
Well, I would, the first, everything before additionally, and it's important, the Planning Commission, working with the consultants, have identified the fact that if we knew what was on the property before we went through the whole process to final building, if we knew in the front, we could work with the developer more adequately to figure out how we wanted the parcel to develop and what was specific to the parcel or what's on. Basically, we don't find out what's on the parcel until the end right now. And the consultants recommended that we move that to the beginning so that we have all the information in the beginning of the conceptual instead of at final. So that's what was the recommendation by the consultants, to add that tool for the Planning Commission. And that is important for the Planning Commission to do their job, and I think that is something that is not as controversial, but yet it's, if we're hindering the Planning Commission from having the tools they need to do their job, that's a whole separate thing than taking away rights and planting trees. So it is two separate things. One is procedural and definitions. The other one is penalties and restrictions. And they're clearly different, and that's why we had two separate public hearings for them.
Okay, so here's my challenge. You did not provide, so right now, if I look at yours, 2.02, 6.05 does, it's the application for a conceptual site plan review, but section 2, what does section 1 say? Does that delineate between a site plan and residential? Because I don't have it here, so I don't know.
Section 1, where do you see that?
There, it's not here, that's my point, I don't see it.
Because it's not being amended.
Yeah, it stays the same.
Okay, but I don't know what the
context of the entire.
Yes, I don't understand the context of 2.02.
Right, well, and typically when any of these I've seen, I've never seen, when they update an ordinance, that just gives you what ordinance they're updating. It doesn't give you the entire list of all the ordinances, unfortunately.
No, but that's.
But I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for permission.
That's right. Trustee Brown, Treasurer Brown.
I'm a little concerned about suddenly splitting this up, especially when as soon as I start reading into the very first page that follows the motion, not very far down, it's talking about 6.05.8.3, which you're saying is going to be in the next motion. And I want to add, I absolutely respect the people whose position is different than mine on this, for sure. And I care about trees too, and I've said that before. I don't like the way we're going about this in the same way that the supervisor has. I think the township needs to go buy property so that trees can't be cut down. I like that a lot. But on this, to start splitting this thing up, the only reason we're adding the first parts was being done in conjunction with a tree ordinance that they would be penalized for later. So the idea that we're going to pass a motion that's going to make these changes and we're sort of cutting it in and out, I just think that puts us at more risk. And I haven't seen this done before where we've done a change to something this important, but then right at the end, when we're going to vote on it, we say, well, let's just sort of separate it out and do this over here and this over there. We can't have confusion on this. It's unfair, I think, to the board members and unfair to the public. And if we're questioning exactly what it is we're voting on, I don't know how we can vote. If that's the way this thing needs to go, then send it back to the planning commission, have it represented in the way you're asking for. But I don't want to split it up in the middle of the meeting when it's this important.
Mr. Supervisor.
Provides a full motion.
Sam, I want to comment that if we were even to split it out, your first section where it says section 6.05, which would be the first part you're talking about, that is that section in its entirety, which includes 6.05B3F6. You see what I'm saying? It's already in there. It's inclusive. So I don't see at this point how it can be split out.
Okay. That's great. So we'll just continue on and additionally add section 11.09 tree preservation to Article 11 environmental standards and add 6.05B.3.F.6 requiring needed information, a conceptual site plan and direct planning director to process requests for second reading at the next available Board of Trustees meeting following the required publication by the clerk.
Second.
Tim, I know this is not part of the quorum, but would the board be acceptable if I asked the attorney a question? I know we're in the middle and that technically I'm not supposed to, so that's why I want to ask the board permission if I can do that.
I'll second.
You don't need a motion.
You have to make a motion. Yeah.
All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, aye.
I don't think you need
We don't
permission.
need a
No,
motion.
we have
Yeah,
motions and then
discussion
we talk.
after.
Is
Call the
it-
question.
We take 2/3, but do we have a second? My question is to you is that, is there an option available since the motion started to retract the motion? And I'm just asking in general, is there an option to do that?
Yeah, the person who makes a motion can retract it.
Once a motion gets started, does that end all discussion and all comments?
As to that motion?
Yes.
No, you can have discussions regarding the motion that's on the table, yes.
So even though it got second,
Yeah,
because I did hear that,
yeah, you can continue a discussion with regard to the motion.
That's when you want discussion. No.
yeah, typically, yeah, right? Okay, I just wanted to just make sure I was clear.
So, motion second.
Yeah, so, can I make a suggestion? And that is we send this back to the planning commission as a vote for it outright.
You can after we have a vote and it gets shot down, then that would be someone else's next motion to direct the planning commission to
Okay.
do something. That would be the right process. This has to go to conclusion.
But you
and
could
then-
pull it, that's why I was just saying. You could pull it.
I could, yeah, but I'm not going to.
Okay. All right, so we had a second. So, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Clerk Newbeck, no. Treasurer Brown?
No,
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Alamothu?
No.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
No.
Motion failed.
All right, I would like to, can I make a motion? Okay. I would like to make a motion that we send this back to the planning commission to amend the township zoning ordinance to revise section 2.02, section 6.05, section 6.06, section 6.07, and add addition of a tree preservation section, and the addition of the tree preservation section 11.09 to Article 11, the Township Environmental Standards, the Independence Township Board of Trustees, having considered the recommendation in the public hearing, to discuss the revision and additions, and now are having received a request from the Planning Commission's chair to send the matter back to the Planning Commission for further discussion.
Support.
Okay. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Yep, okay.
We're back to where we started. I think you guys need to be more specific. I mean, I'm on the planning commission. Don't just send it, we've been working on this for years. Don't just send it back to us, say, work on it some more. Give us some direction. What do you want the planning commission to do with it? That's not, it's not fair to just say, send it back. I mean, let us know let's have a discussion of what your issues are and let's try to find some common ground so we can get somewhere with it. I think that's fair to the commission and everybody who's spent all this time on it. So I'm not opposed, just I think that we should take some time right now and everybody, what the biggest sticking points are, give us something to work with so we can try to dial it in, I think is a fair request.
Treasurer Brown.
I think you basically said that you want them to take into account the board's comments over these past meetings regarding this and what some of our concerns were. Is that accurate?
Well, as a planning commission chairman, I don't feel like you guys were specific enough in what you specifically would like to. Do you want no tree ordinance? Do you want to beef up, you were talking about beefing up landscaping? Do you want no reach back of 2 years? Like specifically, what are the sticking points with the board? I would request that you say. I can just see us sitting at the meeting going, we watched the video, it's all over the place, nobody knows how to get to the finish line, and we've been on this for years, so even if it comes back something weaker, I want it to be something that we can do, that we can get to the finish line.
Clerk Newbeck.
I think the consultant was here at the last meeting, and I think he took notes. I think he got some taste of where the board, or some of the board was at with that. Wouldn't they be advising and helping to rework that with the planning commission?
Possibly, but
I also read the Springfield Township landscape. I'm probably not calling it the right thing, but their landscape plan or whatever, it's not necessarily a tree ordinance by name, but it specifies trees, sizes of trees, what to do with trees. Is it strong enough? Maybe not. Is that something that we could use as a baseline and work from that? And do we currently have something in our ordinance now that sort of starts that as a starting point rather than a brand new tree ordinance? Can you tell me that, Sam?
Well, it's all in requirements of revegetation and things like that, I think that the big things we want to do is hit the talking points of, do we not want to reach back? Do you have a reason that you don't want to? Is there a reason why the board would not want to give the planning commission the tools in advance to make decisions that are conceptual and not have it at the finish? Like that's one of the things, I don't think we have I think if the definitions aren't really, definitions are definitions, how they pertain to what they come up with would be fine, that's gonna get tweaked. But I do think it does matter. One of the biggest issues was where instead of right now requiring the stuff at the final, could we, would the board support giving the planning commission the tools to require more information in the beginning of the project? That's kind of the first thing we had the public hearing on that's different, that I was trying to get past first. Could we have, could we have some input on the feeling of that, the procedural part that we're asking for, not, that the planning commission's asking for.
Treasurer Brown.
I would suggest that based on the communication from the chairman of the planning commission, who apparently sent an email indicating he wants it to come back, that he may already have some thoughts in his mind about how to make some changes that could be more received better by the board. And so, with respect to Bill, he seems like he's got some ideas, or he wouldn't have asked for us to do that.
Trustee Hayward.
I don't know why it seems we're making this so difficult. It's really simple. I don't want to keep sending something back to the planning commission. Then they bring it back. Well, do you guys like this? Nope, we don't like that. Okay, we'll send it back. You guys voted no. There must be something in this you don't want or you'd rather see. I don't know why you can't just tell Sam or say it without having to have somebody else say it. Just say what you don't like, what you want changed. Or if you just don't like a tree ordinance at all. I think it's pretty simple. I don't want to have to keep coming back here with a different one. He's got an idea. Why is this a mystery? There's 4 people that don't want it as it stands. What do you want so we can pass it? That's pretty simple.
I've been point blank clear. I don't want to cross that line where there's any opportunity at all for it to go into the residential, period.
Okay.
And so that would have to be something that would have to be addressed.
You have been,
And
yes.
so, I mean,
Okay,
that is
that's a
my.
good point.
That's my biggest concern.
Okay.
I like the idea of better development on the commercial side. I think they're smart, they'll figure it out. My red line in the sand is that. And I think I've had that comment from day one about this. I think that there's probably a better way to do it, and I think the idea of having a full-blown discussion on it, I'm not prepared to have a full-blown discussion.
No, but there's,
But that
obviously,
is
there's a,
definitely the
one
big
sticking point.
line in the sand for
Well,
me.
that's helpful for
Yes.
us to
Yeah.
have that.
And I mean, even if it's a week from now, you know, going through, I have trouble with, say, 11.2 paragraph 3, this language troubles me, right, versus, because yes, there might, for some, it might be like, you know what, I don't like any of this, there's nothing that's going to change my mind. For others, I have trouble with this section, this paragraph, because that's ultimately what matters, rather than like broad statements. Having clarity and knowing like 11.09, duration, declaration, and purpose, obviously that's defining what it is, but you might have trouble with the way in which preservation is defined, or the teeth within, you know, like, I think it's egregious to replace X amount of trees with this, you know. So I think having specifics would go a long way. That's all.
It costs money, by the way, for us to have the consultants keep, you know, and I know you're conscious of it, so, you know, I just don't understand why everyone can't be more specific. I appreciate you saying what you said.
I guess I'd like a question to Dan. Would it be possible for the board to call for a joint session with the planning commission to discuss the tree ordinances and be in the same room and talk about different ideas in a public meeting and
Absolutely.
save everybody time?
Right, absolutely.
It's an important issue, and
A lot of
I think
communities
there
call it a
would be,
workshop.
there would be a
or
lot of
joint
value in that, and we can stop guessing what everyone's thinking.
Okay, thank you. Our clerk, Newbeck?
I think it's important too that we have our legal team review this. As far as I know, it's not even been reviewed, and they would be the ones that would have to defend it. I don't want lawsuits. I don't want our township tax dollars spent on lawsuits, whether we have money for lawsuits or we don't have money for lawsuits. And I think it's a shame that we haven't already had township legal team review this before we even brought it for a first reading. If this was even something that we were unanimously for, it should be looked at. An ordinance is a big thing. It's whether it's keyholing, whether it's rezonings, it's something that they have to defend. And not even having them review that and give us their opinion on different areas, I think is a big shortcoming for all of us. I think we all should be concerned with that.
Why didn't it happen?
I think it did. Didn't you guys review it?
Yeah, well, yeah, so we provided an opinion that we went into closed session previously with regard to the ordinance changes. It was not a full, we didn't draft this ordinance.
Right, okay.
Well, can I ask what the procedure is to get to what Carrie's asking about? Because, I mean, we've had a month now almost with this. Does somebody specifically direct you to, I don't know how we get it to you, Dan. I just put the MAFE together on my own, so
I mean, typically, if it's not from the board as a whole, it would come through the supervisor's office.
Typically comes from the planning, I'm sorry.
Or the planning commission could request, yeah.
Planning department typically is the one that heads up ordinances with the planning commission.
Right.
And they bring ordinance revisions, amendments, new ordinances, and they're in lockstep with, usually with.
Just so that I'm clear, so it's not unusual for whether it's Carlisle Wortman, in this case because of the residential open space committee, Jerry Fisher, who is an excellent municipal lawyer, as I understand it, did the first draft. So that's not unusual to have a draft done by even non-lawyers that then ends up in front of a planning commission for discussion and then ultimately in front of the board. Our review of that would be a detailed review, if not revisions. We've not changed a word to this ordinance. So could there be more input by our office? I believe there could be. I could answer some of the questions that have come up. We did do a review for the board last time, made reference to the Canton case, which has been talked about. But there could be a further review of the ordinance.
Yeah, so I mean.
And a sign off, if you will. Which,
Let's figure out how to wrap this up,
Yeah.
right?
There's a motion.
So there was a motion to send it back to the planning commission. Do I have a second?
I did second.
I have a second,
did
okay.
that.
All right, good, so then let's just go for a roll call vote. Unless you guys have, somebody else has something else they want to add.
Well, I like the workshop idea, so I don't know if this accomplishes that.
Then request it
I
right
would
now in your motion.
request,
Yeah.
Yeah, can I?
in
can I
conjunction
amend
with the
motion?
planning commission.
I'd like to make an,
the mover can amend the motion.
okay. Not the second?
Then I would like to amend my motion to include a workshop with, joint workshop with the planning commission and the board of trustees.
I second.
Quick legal question. That workshop can be a public opens meeting?
Has to be.
Yes, okay.
yeah.
So public can
It's a
come.
workshop if there's nothing on the agenda to be approved. So
Are they-
we would get together, have a discussion, and then it would go back to an approval action item at some other meeting. I mean, it is a topic to discuss. You could have a joint meeting where you have an action item, agenda. Planning commission would have to take motions to approve, and then theoretically would come to the board at that same meeting. Most of the time that I see it done, it's a workshop where both get together, talk about ideas. Planning commission then goes back after having that communication, does their job, and then it comes back regular form to the township board afterwards. That's how I see it most of the time.
Thank you.
Clerk Newbeck?
Question for you. So if we have this workshop, wouldn't the planning commission then have to rework the ordinance, and wouldn't they have to have another public hearing on it? Because it would
If there's
change.
significant changes, yes.
So they can't make a motion to accept it at the workshop, and the board make a motion to accept it, because that's out of
No.
process.
Right. Well, I mean, you could have the public hearing be the joint meeting. My recommendation,
But
there's lots of possibilities. My recommendation is to have a workshop only, no action items.
Yeah.
Planning commission, if they feel comfortable that they can go right forward at that point to a public hearing, they can do that. But we do it in basically 3 steps. Workshop, joint meeting, planning commission does their thing, and then it comes back to the township board.
Trustee Hayward?
I have kind of a crazy question, I guess. How come Brian's not involved in this?
What?
Why is Brian, I'm sorry, why isn't the director of planning not involved in this? I don't know why he didn't bring this and why Sam did. Because usually ordinances are brought by.
Trustees are allowed to bring.
Right.
And so he did.
Oh, okay. Right, I understand that part, but, okay.
Any other comments?
No.
No, okay. Can I get a roll call vote then, please, clerk?
Treasurer Brown,
Yes.
trustee Hayward.
Yes.
Trustee Morocco,
Sure.
trustee Naumothu,
Yes.
trustee Tedder,
Yes.
supervisor File,
Yes.
clerk Newbeck, yes, motion carried.
All right. Back to the agenda. Okay, that closes out regular business, closed session, budget session, there's nothing there. Communication, future agenda items, Safety Path Advisory Committee, June 11, 2025. Final board member comments. Any board members have comments? Trustee Now Matthew.
I have a couple, just in terms of what things were brought up today as far as Robert's rules and all, and the ones who wanted to be so strict about how it ran at the last meetings were some of the ones that violated it a lot today. So I'm just saying, everyone needs to learn and do better.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, then I'll close board member comments, and can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is that a roll call, or is it all in favor? A roll call, please. Isn't it? Roll in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, motion carried.
You said that?